Thank you very much, Mornay. A little bit clearer, it's still fuzzy, but I'm a little bit clearer. I've got questions this time. When I look at this diagram, and thank you very much for this diagram, because I think pictorially it just helps kind of place where everything is and will look like. And immediately my first concern is security.
Yeah.
Because if you've got a hub now where my different banking access, payments is centralized, a hacker needs to hack just one access point as opposed to a number of access points to get access into my corporate or organization's payment systems. So how does this increase or decrease the risk of payments and hackers and access to information, really?
Yeah. No, I think especially if we start looking at fraud, and you, as I mentioned, I think your first part of the equation is to automate as much as possible.
Yes.
And now you've automated, now it's sitting in one platform. So the platform will have the same security features available as online banking at this point in time. So you would, the platform supports multi-factor authentication. So you need an approval step to be able to perform certain functions. But then if you want to take this to the next level, you can, because all the data is sitting in one platform, now you can start building your own internal rules to apply to your payment policy, as an example. So if it's, for instance, the first time you're paying a new beneficiary, it should follow a separate approval process, or it should have additional approval processes involved so that you can ensure that the correct procedures are followed. So if a hacker hacks the platform for some reason, as an example, you still have your internal controls within the application to make sure that nothing can be executed in the platform.
I see. And my second question was, who's responsible for designing this banking hub? Is it the application? Is it the bank? Is it IT? Is it finance? Is it treasury? Because the more you were speaking, the more the treasury function was starting to sound like an IT function. And,
Yeah.
you know, I don't know how you felt sitting in the audience, but I was like, oh, good God,
Yeah.
this sounds very complicated.
So what we've been seeing is that fintechs is bridging that gap between the corporates and the banks. The corporates don't want to focus with their IT teams to manage this on a daily basis, to go and understand what the bank's functionality is, and even from a finance perspective, understand the difference between an intraday statement and a close of day statement. So usually the IT teams doesn't have that skills, yes, to understand the technology in the end, but it is using fintechs to work with the banks to provide these type of solutions to corporates.
Right. Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Yes, we have a question. May we please have just wait for the microphone, please, sir. Coming through. I've got a question here. Any other questions that I can line up after this one? Okay, and one in the front and one in the back.
Mornay, good. Thanks for the presentation. Just you mentioned earlier about the speed of processing of APIs slowing down with high volumes. Is that a problem that is API the way of the future, and that speed problem will be resolved, or is it something that is a limitation to APIs?
Yeah, I think it depends on your back-end environment. So as volumes increase, it uses more resources from your environment. It uses more RAM and hard disk space and all of those components. So the first thing is your environment should always be spec'd so that you'll be able to handle these volumes. So for me, I don't think if you go with the correct technology and the correct solution, that shouldn't be a massive hurdle to you. If you look at all the other technologies currently available in the market, ERP systems, all the systems are moving towards API connectivity because that is the future. It's just how quickly the banks can get onto the bandwagon so that we can all communicate. But yeah, if you've got a good solution, you shouldn't be impacted by volumes.
I've got a question in the front, and may I ask that when you ask your question, you just introduce yourself, where you're from, so we get to know each other a little bit better. Is it on? I can't hear it from my side.
Can you hear me? There we go.
Yes, there we go.
I'm Chris. I'm from RMB, so I am from the bank. So just your point around, and it's, I suppose, related to this last question as well, your point around APIs versus host-to-host. So, APIs in a specific use case, as Richard pointed out in his presentation, make complete sense. But do you truly think that there will be, at least in the next 5 years, I think it might be a little bit of a short time frame, to move completely away from host to an API-driven world? I mean, it's more likely that there's going to be a balance between the two for some time.
That's why I'm also stressing a hybrid solution. So I know a lot of banks is focusing on providing you with real-time visibility. So they're focusing on bank statements and providing that information for you. So yes, that in the next 5 years, you will see some traction in that, and for your operational accounts, so that you can have real-time visibility. But I don't see all the banks being up in replacing host-to-host in the next 5 years. I still see it as a hybrid solution. But in the future, definitely. To give you another example on a use case, and this is also coming down to the processing and slowing down and all of that, is we're working with another client that executes 50,000 payments on a daily basis. Or not on a daily, on a monthly basis, but that's still, that's a lot of volumes. So if you just think about traditional host-to-host connectivity, that's 50,000 files in essence that you need to send over the host-to-host channel. And on average, you're going to receive 3 responses. So that's another 150,000 files you're going to receive back. So that's 200,000 files on a monthly basis that needs to be sent between the bank and the corporate, and then back internally to the various internal systems. So if you just start looking at those use cases as well, it's to completely eliminate that. You want direct end-to-end connection processing without files floating around. And it also speaks back to risk. If you don't have these files floating around, you start reducing risk within the organization.
Yeah, I think that, to your point, right, so use cases around specific real-time itemized type flows absolutely should move to API.
Yeah.
I think things like payroll, collections files, there's still a strong use case for, I'd rather call it bulk than batch. I do think we need to move away from batch overnight processing, but there's still a strong use case for bulk in certain scenarios where it's more around having one file with multiple transactions than very many individual interactions.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's take payroll as an example. So the traditional market for payroll is you use an outsourced provider. You have to pay your salaries across a day before payment run. So the corporate immediately has an opportunity cost of a day's interest. So if the payroll's 100 million, they lose a day's interest on 100 million because the payments will be only processed the next day. So again, if you think of the optimal solution as on the same day, you want to be able to execute these payments in real time. All your employees get their salaries at the same point in time, and you don't lose a day's opportunity cost on your payroll.
No, I agree with you 100%. It's just the interaction mechanism may not necessarily be individual transaction APIs, but a single authorized interaction. Because for that type of flow, it's also very important that the treasurer or the FD who's releasing the file can authorize it upfront and know that tomorrow morning it's going to go first thing. Yeah. Because they are very time-sensitive payments.
Yeah, and definitely I think there will be different use cases, but let's say we look the future, we define it as 10 or 20 years down the line. I really believe that everything will be API connectivity as the world is evolving with technology. But within the next 5, maybe even 10 years, there will definitely be hybrid cases, as depending on the bank what they provide to a corporate with regards to batch processing or itemized processing and what the banks see as important from their perspective.
Thank you. I've got a question at the back. Your name, please, sir, and where you're from. And before I take your question, I see a number of people standing at the back. There are seats in the front if you'd like to take them, so you're more than welcome to come through and just getting your exercise in. No problem. But just know there's seats in the front if you're interested. Yes, my question at the back, please. The mic is not on.
I'm Rudy from Sasol. I just want to get your view. Do you think APIs will replace Swift?
I don't think at this point in time. I know that Swift is also using API, is bringing out API connectivity. So I think it's going to be use case specific, but I don't believe that it will completely be eliminated. Because again, if I go back to a multinational corporate, let's say you have 20 to 40 banking partners sitting in Africa and in the US and so forth. You would still need to go and build 20 or 40 API connections, manage that, maintain that. Where with the Swift network, you get one single connection to the Swift network and you're immediately connected. So definitely, I think Swift will probably also embrace API technology and provide innovative solutions to corporates, but definitely not replacing it in the future.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for Mornay, please, for that very insightful presentation. Thank you, Mornay. And still on innovative solutions, I'd like to invite next up Clifford Blackburn, speaking on behalf of F&B, around some solutions they have that cut costs, improve service delivery around logistics. Ladies and gentlemen, Clifford Blackburn. Nice to meet you.
I chose this mic, so stand behind comfortably, looking at everybody. It feels a little bit, for the people that don't understand API, that word gets thrown around a lot, right? And I think it's become something that's just become a normal, everyday topic of conversation. So I'm here by the pleasure of F&B and R&B. They've asked me to chat to you. So it's going to change a little bit in terms of our first two speakers. So yeah, I'm going to talk about the things that happen there in the background, as you can see. The trucks, the planes, the trains, etc. So from a logistics point of view, this generally is your client. So when we talk about supply chain, we know this is everything from collecting something in a different country and delivering it to South Africa or vice versa. So supply chain is unquestionably in chaos. And I know that most of your clients are the ones that are in the chaos. And I did the definition, just to show you what it is. But I think this is the best explanation. Complete disorder and confusion. And genuinely it is. Anything that happens around the world affects our supply chain in some way or another. I mean, nobody knew we had so many products coming out of Russia until it wasn't allowed to come anymore. Nobody understood that not only was Russia going to be a challenge for us, but so was Ukraine. So, the old saying, when someone sneezes or the world sneezes, South Africa has an issue. And I mean, if you have a look, as importers and exporters of goods into this country, and they're the guys that use all of your platforms. They're the guys that use your platforms to be able to transact. In terms of a logistics, they need our help, right? Unquestionably. So I think from a help point of view, how are we going to help them? So you need to be able to create an environment that gives them the ability to see, what's happening. So if we have a look, most of the businesses in South Africa particularly have been navigating crisis after crisis. So if we have a look through the eyes of the client, and mostly your client, maybe one or two of you are the client, but excessive pricing. As you know, we had lockdown. we had opportunists who said, well, now I can charge more money, because if I am able to move something from A to B, you're going to pay more. And I think we know that the shipping lines, I don't know, their prices went from $1,000 to $10,000 to $15,000, which is not bad if you are a dollar economy and you're earning $1. But from $1,000, which at the time was around 15, 15,000 rand, not bad, not too bad. And then you look at when it's 10,000 and it's 150,000, and that's just for the container. That's not for your goods, that's for nothing else. So quite excessive. So then, because everybody wanted to get stuff in, and we've heard about everything that happens in America where everybody was ordering online, so were we ordering online, and hence the reason why there became a little bit of a gridlock. So the clients couldn't find space on a vessel, so that meant where you normally would have something ordered and it would take from time of manufacture to your back door anything 6, 8, maybe 10 weeks, now was taking double the time. And even in that respect, there were problems. So we talk about low visibility. From a low visibility, meaning you don't know what's happening. So even though we sit in a world where everything is electronic, people just weren't connecting the dots, So from a client's perspective, there was very, very high unpredictability. They just couldn't get it right. So, you guys have heard of a thing called just-in-time. That just went out the window. There is no such thing as just-in-time. If you want to order something, you make sure you have more than sufficient time. There's no just in it. Because the truth of the matter is it won't arrive. And especially if you're selling to the larger corporates, let's take our macro game as an example. You have a delivery date. There's a whole lot that goes behind the scenes. They're advertising, they're in for a season, and from a South African perspective, we have 2 seasons, summer and winter, so we don't break up into 4. If your goods are not here, you're paying penalties. So not only has it cost you a fortune to bring here, but it's also going to cost you a fortune for not getting it on time. So, and most of the clients feel like they don't have enough control. So it's almost in the abyss, it's thrown into the air, and you always have somebody phoning somebody who's going to phone somebody who's going to get back to you at some point. And then the people forget to get back to you. So I think daily logistics challenges, and those are every day. So not just from an international point of view, sending stuff out of South Africa can be very challenging. And we can sit and have a pity party and moan about everything from a pothole to long queues at the port and et cetera, et cetera. But the truth of the matter is that the client who is a specialist in what they do now have to become logistics specialists. They now have to start to really get a tight grip on it. Anyway, so let's look at what they've been through. COVID lockdown, everything shut down, I think, throughout the world. We all know, we all sat at home thinking, I was like, okay, worked it out. Oh, there's a few holidays in between. Spoke to my staff, said maybe about 10, 12 days max, Anyway, as you know, wasn't looking too clearly. Obviously, we've had some riots, as you all know, and that affected supply chain, unquestionably, as you can imagine, right? Then we had 2 storms in KZN. That literally, there were containers floating down the road. And from that perspective, it's like our busiest port is Durban. So the port of Durban is the busiest port. That means that when there's trouble there, everything grinds to a halt. And then we recently, as you guys know, had some strikes at the port, which further affected. So it becomes a compounding thing, if you can understand it. And the only way to explain it to people that are not in that supply chain part is think about when you order something and you want it delivered to your house. You can just imagine that on the N1 they've now blockaded it, and then the guy says, sorry, we can't deliver to you today, we're going to maybe tomorrow. And then tomorrow the highway fell down, and et cetera, et cetera. So what happens is this time just moves on and on and on and on. And then we've seen trucks being burnt because we don't want a foreign driver, we do want a foreign driver, et cetera. All of these things are affecting the guy importing and ultimately whatever we're buying. So. And then obviously excessive fuel increases. I don't know if you guys have seen, but I mean, it's quite funny to watch when we say, fuel's coming down 10 cents, just went up 2 rand. And we're so excited that it went down by 10 cents. You know, it's like, yo. Unfortunately, diesel is not coming down. You know, it's just keep going up. And you ask now, why is it becoming so expensive? Well, the war in Ukraine, and anyway. So what does this mean for ultimately your client, the importer, the exporter? Okay, so it means that they need help. And how can they get it? So what they need is high visibility. They need information, and they need it relatively quickly. I mean, we saw our last two guests speak about technology, and how connective it is. And that's what we need. We need the ability to be able to not all become logistics specialists, but to be able to have that information at our hand. I mean, we can see when Sally's had supper at a restaurant on social media instantly. And she's taking a picture and she's Instagramming it, we can see. But why can we not see our logistics in the same way? Obviously, we need technology to start predicting. We can't look at history anymore. We can't say, you know, normally in the season we have a peak, and we have a valley, and another peak, and a valley. That doesn't happen. You cannot. COVID changed all of that. It changed everything. I mean, who thought that you'd be able to work from home? I mean, how awesome, right? You can sit with a nice suit jacket on and pajamas or shorts, and people say, that guy's, look, he's at work. And it's the truth, you know. And then when you forget to mute and you're telling the dog to shut up, anyway, it's a different time. And that means from logistics point of view, it's a very different time. So, you know, if we're talking about help, we need the client to be in control. And how do you give somebody control of something that they don't understand? And I think we need to help them and give them something. And I think today, you know, being asked to chat about this and from a logistics perspective, I come from this industry, so I'm quite passionate about how do we make things better for somebody? How do you make what I think if we go back to the 40s and 50s, it was only the mafia that ran any form of logistics. You know, if you wanted a load, you paid, and if you gave it to somebody else, you paid. So to legitimize it a little bit, you need to throw some things at it. So I love this saying. And genuinely, if you guys can just get this and understand when a client comes to you, inventory is the currency. Really, it's the currency of supply chain. And what I mean by that, it's very simple, is that the person's goods is his money. It's what he pays, what he sells, and where he gets it back. So looking after that is highly important. So from a logistics perspective, you can say, okay, I'm going to give you 10 Rand off this, 1 Rand a kilo, or I'm going to save you 2.50 Rand on a package, or we're going to try to save money on your shipping. It's no longer, really is no longer enough. We need to go way or much deeper. And as I explained, the cost of a ship, it's come down a little bit. I think we're on about $7,000. That's still a lot of money. And if you look at today's exchange rate, you know that that's a hell of a lot of money. So when a client comes, you've got to look at other ways. So we have to look at ways of saving them in every aspect. And that means from the time that, you know, they want some Forex from you guys, you need to make sure that you're giving it to them at the best possible rate. Because understand, this is what keeps the wheels going. So this is just something that I read in Forbes, and I just wanted to, the thing I liked about it, they spoke about a black swan, and I never knew what a black swan event was. So if you guys do know, just bear with me a second. But basically, they only, back in the day, only saw white swans. They never knew there was a black swan. So whenever there was something they used to refer to as a black swan, you don't ever see a black swan. Basically, that's an event. Like COVID was a black swan. We could have never, ever predicted that would happen. You know, you think in your lifetime, we'd be shut down. We wouldn't be able to go out. You're not allowed to meet anybody. You're not allowed to shake anybody's hand. You've got to keep a distance. That never happened. So from what I really liked about it is that, you know, there's always a black swan event on the horizon. And guys, there is. I mean, let's be honest. If you think everything is running smoothly, something's going to happen. So whether it's internally from a South African perspective, because remember, like the ports are back in operation, but now the drivers are not really happy, and then they go into, and then so does it cycles. So we need to navigate around those issues. Anyway, So FNB, RMB have a product that looks specifically at helping the client. And this is the product. It literally, from the time a client places an order up until the client receives their goods, they have full visibility. So the system that I'll show you a little bit about manages the process and obviously the single point of contact. So because people want to talk to people. They don't talk to call centers. They want to talk to people and preferably the same person so they can understand. And I used the name Sally early. So Sally can understand that she's having a bad day and she doesn't want to be dealt with in any other way other than getting her goods on time. So from that perspective, let me show you.
All your logistics simplified into one digital platform. Business benefits. Be more in control with complete transparency of costs at every step of the value chain. Save time and hassle with live tracking and transacting on one platform with one point of contact. Save money with a more efficient and integrated logistics flow with mitigated cross-border risks. Plus, pay no management fee. For more information, contact your trade specialist or email us on trade@fnb.co.za.
So guys, yeah, that's me. I just wanted to give you a little bit of insight in terms of import and export. Obviously, from a platform point of view, undoubtedly, it makes the client's life easier. But it's also, I think, very important to understand when you're dealing with somebody and they're doing a SWIFT or they're doing a API transfer or understand that behind there are a lot of challenges in the logistics industry. So from there, if you guys are interested in any way or any of your clients, you can email trade@fnb.co.za and the guys will gladly help you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Clifford, for that very entertaining presentation and reflection on what life has been for the past 2 years. I remember the dread I felt when we got that first confirmation of the COVID case. The gentleman from Hilton, like, why did he have to do that? And you thought, oh, it's just going to stay in KZN. Then all of a sudden cases started popping up in Johannesburg and you're like, okay, let me not try leave my house. And then we went to full-blown lockdown. And as if that wasn't bad enough, you're sitting at home scared that if you leave the house, you're either being killed by the virus or the looters during that July period. That was not a fun time at all. Ladies and gentlemen, any questions for Clifford? Any comments? Clifford, you will still be sticking around if anyone has any questions or comments. Ladies and gentlemen, we are running way ahead of schedule. Now you've got two options. We can either have longer tea and lunch breaks, or we can finish early. Which one do you go for? Because I know you're dying to get back to your spreadsheets, right? Finish early. So shall we keep tea to 30 minutes? And then we come back, proceed with the program. I can't make tea any shorter because obviously, you know, our speakers have committed to a certain time. So we are really trying to get them to accommodate us with the earlier time. So can we make tea 30 minutes? Meaning we will be back here at 9:25. Okay, 10:25, my apologies. 10:25 sharp. Make it 10:30? Okay, let's make it 10:30. We'll be back here to commence with the rest of the program, and hopefully we'll be able to finish early. But please do engage. Now that I've given you the option of finishing early, don't just, you know, not ask questions, hoping we'll be out of here by 12. It's not going to happen. I will find questions to ask if you. All right. See you back here at 10:30, ladies and gentlemen. Engage with the exhibition stands. Ask about your businesses. And yeah, bathrooms are out the door, straight down to the right. If you are a smoker, out these glass doors onto the foyer. And since no one is still listening to me, I'll be off the stage.